Hello, and welcome to my podcast.
Yeah, let's
Why-
repeat that.
Why do you
He
not
cut me
mute?
off.
Why do you not mute us?
Check it.
All right,
Check.
we're gonna try this again. I'm
Are we
gonna-
muted? Are we muted? No.
Oh.
All right.
No?
Hello, and welcome to our podcast, where the dark corners are. Here we go.
Why? Why do you just mute all of us?
She
We're
said,
not-
"Here we go."
We're not doing great here.
I wasn't
You
muted.
though.
I wasn't
With the
muted.
music.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna try this
You
again.
should literally go, here we go.
Here we go. You just don't want Sam to pick up her kids.
I know shit. Like, we're gonna have to take a pause. I'm gonna drive to Janesville and my kids are coming back.
All right. One more time. Hello, and welcome to our podcast, where the dark corners are. Hello. I am Vina, and I am your Dark Travels hostess. Tonight, the gang's all here,
Woohoo!
Yes.
including
Road trip with the panda.
She just looks at me every time. it plays.
She's waiting for the yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying yeah.
Yeah.
I was say, if we're road tripping with him today, he's definitely asleep in the passenger seat.
That's right, Ash. I don't know why you put me up there.
Well, believe it or not, one of my current goals is actually to get a group, like little theme jingle. But that's not going to happen until after February or mid-February.
Like a Wiggle song. You're listening to Big Red Car.
Beep, beep,
Choot, choot.
big red car.
Choot, choot, chugga, big red car. Yeah. We'll get there one day.
Yeah. So
When you have your own kids.
I'm going to pass on the kids option.
Been there, done
Yeah,
that.
you
No,
can't
thank
now.
you.
It's 20-something years too late now.
But yeah, so that is one of my goals, but it won't happen until after our trip,
Oh,
February. So there's a light at the end of this tunnel. So
We're going on a trip.
Well, no,
In
you're
our
not.
favorite
rocket.
In
We're
our
not
favorite
invited.
rocket ship.
But I do think we actually have a pretty awesome cover for when we do the group episodes.
Oh, yes.
The black one with the heads.
Yes.
Yeah, that one's cool.
So Samantha is a pig face, just so everyone knows that.
And
with
it
a
looks
mask.
slightly naked.
Right.
It's fine. That's how I party. Naked with a pig mask.
Well, you know you're next. So, anywho, but yes, so the gang's all here. I think this is our first New Year's recording
Yeah.
together.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
As you could tell, is a little low energy because some of them were partying a little hard last night.
Like, I don't know what if I would call what I was doing partying, but yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't know about that.
It takes a lot of energy to create a paladin.
It's creative power. Stupid.
So, anywho, but we're actually going to talk about cults.
Are we a cult?
Maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do we worship a deity?
Well, You don't have to worship a deity. You just have to worship.
Something.
Do we have
A leader.
definition?
I
shared-
do have a definition.
Okay.
Get it.
So it says specific factors in cult behavior are said to include manipulative and authoritarian mind control over members, communal
That's what
and
Vina does.
right, communal
Whoa!
individualistic organization, also Vina.
Shots fired.
Aggressive proselytizing. I can't say that word, but it means aggressive, making someone believe what you believe. Systematic programs of indoctrination and perpetuation in middle class communities.
Where's that from?
That one is from Wikipedia.
Okay.
The
Is-
other one
is my name under there. The bunny.
they
We
didn't
can put it on there.
specifically put you in this time.
It will be on Urban Dictionary. Then.
But they also have this other guy says that it's authoritarian leadership, exclusivism, isolationism, opposition to independent thinking, fear of being disfellowship,
Because muting us all helped.
and threats of satanic attack. So, I mean, under those things, I think we're definitely a cult because we're exclusive. No one else can join us. And, I mean, it's
you
still
can't leave either.
right.
No,
Have you
you-
tried to leave?
Yeah.
Isolationism, you can't go.
Oh.
I don't want to get kicked out, please. I have a fear of whatever the heck that was.
If you're not being accepted.
Fear of being disfellowshipped. Please don't disfellowship me. I need all the friends I,
I
can
don't think
get.
you're the problem here.
Oh.
Oh,
Okay, back on track. Polar bear, since you have problems with Vina, why don't you go first?
Okay. See, there's a discipline if you speak
the
out of turn.
discipline's right.
We're definitely voting you out later.
Cults. So I was looking into cults, and I came across a god awful one, so I decided not to do that. And there was another awful one that was less awful. So my cult actually started in like the 80s. It's a long running cult, but it didn't come across as a cult at first. So this guy Keith Raniere.
Raniere.
Okay. Well, you want to do?
I've watched The Vow. I'm
Okay.
so into this. I'm so ready.
Well, you should probably do it then, because
No, I want to hear
I
you
have
do
a
it.
lot,
I'll just
yeah.
provide commentary.
so
I want to hear you do it. I want to watch you.
That was my NPR voice. Thanks for joining me late night.
So Keith Raniere is actually he's a really smart guy. He has a really high IQ. He is in one of the Guinness Book of World Records for having one of the highest IQs. And I mean, he's charismatic, and so he had a pyramid scheme going back in the day that was bringing in like $33 million a year or something.
Oh my God.
It was really good until it went upside down for some reason. So then he started up and he created the company called NXIVM, which is spelled NEXIVM, which is Latin, Greek,
Latin.
or Roman numeral type shit.
Okay.
I didn't go to college. So NXIVM is essentially a improving yourself groups. So they're classes, and people would have to pay to take those classes, and they weren't cheap. They were like thousands of dollars. It was like, I want to say what I saw was $7,000 for the set like of 13 1-hour classes, and you show up and their seminars, a bunch of chairs, bunch of people, and on the face of the company was self-improvement, getting over your problems, gaining enlightenment, which I mean it is great, but it attracts the sort of people that need that.
Or vulnerable.
Vulnerable.
Like that direction in
Yeah.
their life.
Yeah, people have, been through some things and they're trying to fix themselves, better themselves.
Well, and this cult particularly is built on, they're trying to promote female empowerment. So they bring a lot of women in, and it's very exclusive.
Right. So actually NXIVM was gender neutral. It was everybody. But then within NXIVM, they had the DOS, which stands for Dominus Obsequious Sorium, and that translates to Lord over the obedient female companions, which already sounds culty.
Yes. It sounds like a sex slave scenario.
Which is,
Where we're going.
you guessed it. Ding, ding, ding. So after taking NXIVM classes, like the whole NXIVM thing was it started out weird too, because when they show up, they get certain colored sashes to show their rank in their little group.
So
that-
like a hierarchy.
yeah, yeah. So like when a certain member comes in with a certain sash, there's certain things you have to do. So somebody comes in, I'm not sure what the sash colors were, but let's say orange, for example, everybody would have to stand. And when Raniere would come in, they would have to bow, not like not like as a sign like a respect type bow, but like he's
to
a
the
higher
god.
yeah he's a higher power, and that was his whole thing. He pushed that he was smarter than everybody else. He was smart to the point where he was inhuman. He was a deity to be worshipped, and every woman he met was supposed to kiss him on the lips and say like a certain thing to him. And so that's what
Like
this
the code,
pushed.
like
Yeah.
the code.
And that's what they all pushed for. And these people being, I mean, it sounds weird to all of us, but after being pushed by these classes, some people looked into it first starting, and some psychiatrists said this is a form of brainwashing. Like him, and then there was another lady that was his partner in crime. Her name is Nancy Salzman. She's a psych, and his partner. So they created all this, and so they pushed for the DOS.
Yeah, they call it DOS, I believe.
DOS. And so the DOS was essentially a higher level. So like, oh, you want to be, you want to be better, you go to the next level and you can join the DOS. And DOS was female exclusive, hence the name. And then it ended up being like a pyramid scheme where he was at the very top. And then when you were at the bottom, you were trying to recruit people off the streets. And whoever said no, you were supposed to cut off any communication with. And it was a lot of isolating, a lot of just stick to the group, follow the rules. And I mean, people that don't have control in their lives crave that control, being told what to do. And once you do exactly what you're told, you find some kind of inner peace type thing. So then the DOS was exclusively female, like I said, and they pushed female empowerment, all that stuff. And one of the ladies that helped run that was Allison Mack, who's actually, she's an actress, and she's well known for her role in Smallville.
I think, didn't she just recently get convicted?
Yeah, so the whole NXIVM was brought down, I want to say 2017, 2018. And there were trials, and I think just recently, most of the females that were at the top plead guilty, except for the main guy, Raniere. He denied everything, and he still thinks he's the shit.
So where is he now?
He's in prison.
Where he belongs?
Yeah. So yeah, so the DOS ended up being female empowerment that turned into taking power away from females, a sex trafficking cult thing to where everybody at the bottom was called a slave and he was the master. And to do certain things, to progress your rank, you had to do certain things and follow certain rules. And it got to the point where the masters at the top, they were telling the slaves what to do. Like, you had to be on your phone all the time. You couldn't do anything without getting permission from the master. So, like, if he texts you at 2 a.m. and you didn't reply within a certain amount of time window, 1-2 minutes, you're going to get punished. And the punishments varied. Like, one lady was locked in a house or, like, a basement for, like, a year.
A
They would
year?
just feed her. And, yeah, there were awful, cruel punishments. And then all the slaves ended up having to, they thought they were getting a tattoo, but they ended up getting branded with his initials on the lower stomach area, belt line right there. So they were getting branded with his initials, and they would be groomed to have sex with him on certain times. Like, it was portrayed like almost an honor, like, oh, you get to do this, and everybody around you is in the same mindset. So you're just kind of like, herd mentality type thing. You're like, oh, yeah. But then time comes, and it's just him and her in a room, and she's like, maybe I don't want to anymore. And it's too bad. It's too late. And so to join the DOS, initially you had to give some kind of private information about yourself. There was like,
This sounds like Scientology.
yeah, it was like
Something that would be damning.
yeah, sex tapes, like blackmail stuff to your family.
So basically something that they can hold over
Oh,
on you.
definitely. And all the sex stuff and all the bad stuff that they had them do was recorded on a tape. So when somebody did choose to leave, they're like, well, you can't leave because then all of this is going to go public and you're a piece of shit. That's how they trapped everybody. And
So like confess your sin scenario, but they kept the audio recording of it.
oh yeah, yeah. And then what ended up happening is a lot of these people, I don't want to say a small amount was victimized, but a lot of these people, even after Rainier went to prison, they're still worshiping him like he's the shit. All of these Nexium people, they'll show up outside the prison and they would be like dancing, and like it's kind of hidden in there because they're like, oh, we're doing it for this guy that's in prison, but that guy's not actually in that prison. There's no existence for
They're
him.
trying to be covert,
Yeah, covert,
so
but they're not.
stupid about it.
So, but yeah, he actually went out and, well, I mean, he did all kinds of stuff, and he profited. Only the top of the pyramid profited, and like the middle part, they were all promised money, promised all kinds of different things. They never got it. They never got anything, and that's another level of brainwash where you have to do something, you're promised one thing, and then you don't get it, and then you're like, well, I'm just gonna keep doing it, you know, like. If I didn't get paid at work, guess who's not coming to work? This guy. So there's a lot to it. And like you said, I was going to watch the documentary on it, which is called The Vow on HBO Max. And I was like, oh, it'll be an hour and I can knock it out and have some useful information. And then I went to it, and it's 2 seasons of 8 episodes that are an hour each. So
You passed.
that was too much. Unless we do a bigger episode on it, you know, want to expand on this scenario, then I'll go through and watch everything, and I'll bring you guys exact details. But this is just a little taste of what Nexius had to offer.
Wow. Avoid it like COVID.
Right. Well, no, Vow was really good because it shows home videos of them. Like, you can see Nancy interacting with Raniere, and you can see all of the girls sitting around him while he's on the couch and, like, waiting hand and foot. And Nancy claims that she's a victim, which I think to some extent she was equally brainwashed and as in love with him. So I think, but her problem is she's like,
Who's Nancy?
She's
she's
a
the second in
psychiatrist
command.
Lady.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were.
And she's kind of like his Ghislaine, is that how you say it, Maxwell or whatever, you know, like she went out and recruited people too, so people think they're just as complicit. And so it's like, are they victims because he did the same thing to them that he was doing to everybody else? Or to her in particular?
And that was another agenda that they were pushing, is victimness was a mental state. There's no such thing as being a victim. You think
So
you're
they
a
were
victim.
pre like
Yeah,
planning
They grew.
a
yeah,
potential.
they
I wasn't a
groomed all of
victim.
them.
This is a choice.
This right.
So it's really interesting. You get to see them start to get their trials started and whatnot because you see them walking to and from court. So it's interesting.
All right, Samantha, what was your cult?
Well, my cult was the Quiverful movement, and it also is really, really complicated. So we've heard of the Duggars, and that's the 20 kids and counting people.
Yeah. Okay.
And we've also heard of that doctor who inseminated many of his clients with his own semen. His name?
I think there's like a multiple of those doctors running around.
Yeah, this one's Dr. Klein. So between 1979 and 1986, he artificially inseminated his female patients with his own sperm instead of their donors, without their knowledge or permission, and he's believed to father more than 94 children.
Nice.
Yeah, lovely.
Wow, Nick Cannon?
Right.
Nick
Yeah, I'm
Cannon.
just kidding.
I actually kind of wonder if he kind of takes the Quiverful movement ideas. So Quiverful itself is a theological position held by some Christian followers who believe that large families are direct blessing from God. So essentially the Quiverful idea means that your children are arrows and they go out and fight like the godly war. So the more arrows that you have out in the world, the more soldiers you have. So they're like trying to repopulate the earth so that there's more Christian followers. Is this sounding
We don't-
problematic?
Jesus, this sounds like Mormons. But
Whoa, hey now.
Shots fired.
Yeah, shots
Arrows fired.
Arrows fired.
but we don't need to repopulate the earth, folks. We're like at 5 billion, 6 billion.
Yeah, we're not doing
We're
well.
good. We're solid, you know.
Our natural resources are diminishing. So their followers believe in the importance of procreation and are anti-birth control, including natural family planning, a method approved by the Catholic Church in order to achieve and avoid pregnancy. They also their believers are also against sterilization and abortion. So I was reading an article this morning about this couple, and he actually went and got vasectomy.
Vasectomy?
Yeah, I'm like, I cannot say that word. I was going to say neutered because my cats just got neutered. And I'm like, that's
Whoa.
not right either.
Whoa.
So he went and got a vasectomy, and the church actually, this group actually raised money to pay for him to get it reversed.
No. No. Two and done.
Yeah, it's
Two and done.
intense.
Two and done.
Two and done. Okay, sorry, Samantha.
Oh, sorry, I got 3.
Ah,
I'm not part of the group.
you're not part of the cult.
She's already headed out the door, y'all.
Right? I got to go. So they gained popularity in the 20th century following the advancements in birth control and after the publication of a book by Mary Pride, which was called The Way Home, Beyond Feminism and Back to Reality in 1985. Also, I love feminism. Fuck the patriarchy.
Wait a minute. Beyond feminism and back to reality. Birth control is a reality. It's a very healthy reality.
Why do you keep looking at me? I'm like,
Just blaming you for that.
Hashtag don't be a fool, wrap your tool.
the tool ain't going nowhere. Tool's tired.
Yeah, no, that's kind of disgusting. That is disgusting.
It gets worse because we're upset with the fact that they don't believe that people can use birth control and that women can, choose to not have a baby and a man can choose not to have a baby. But Pride actually detailed her journey away from feminism and converting to this form of Christianity because she discovered the true happiness flourished in the role of wives and mothers living under the rule of their husband and children.
No.
Yeah, I wouldn't make it.
No. I would have fucking crashed and burned if I had not gone to college, if I had not gotten a college education, when my, my first husband was cheating and I kicked his ass out. He was, for the most part, he brought in most of the money. If I was subservient to that, I wouldn't have everything that I have now because I decided to be a mother and a wife. Fuck that. No. There's more to women than just being a parent and being someone's partner. That's disgusting. It's disgusting to me.
You can join the DOS. That's all women. And it's
Empowerment.
female empowerment, and you guys can do whatever you want.
Yeah, so long as I give someone a blowjob. Yeah.
That comes
pay some money
later.
Well, and women have come a long way. Our job is not to just be barefoot and pregnant in our house and give our husbands their smoking jacket. But this group does not believe that. They believe that you should be completely subservient on the man, and that if at any point a man has some type of sinful thoughts, it's because the woman gave it to them. Like the man takes no
Jesus
ownership
Christ.
over his behavior
So there's no ownership of responsibility of bad behavior,
or accountability
accountability.
or naturalness of having those types of thoughts because you're a human. It's biological.
Right. I mean, I was actually telling someone the other day that there is, it's a limit, obviously, but it's healthy to flirt with other people. But, of course, you don't cross that line. But it kind of boosts your self-esteem as Polar Bear's trying to touch Panda.
It's their healthy flirting.
Correct.
It happens often.
It's a real thing. It gives you a little boost to your little ego, and you go about your fucking day. The end. But my point is this. It's like, I promise you, Husband Jeff has nothing to do with my, little flirtiness. Because I'm a person. I'm allowed to have all these variety of feelings, and I fucking will. The end.
Yeah, so these guys really gained a lot of notoriety when the most recent scandal came out about the Dugars. So clearly we know that the one was just recently arrested for child pornography and his family stood by him. And all of us were kind of like, how? How do you stand by this man?
Because this is disgusting mentality.
Well, and we find out that he also molested his siblings, so his sisters. And so we're like, how are we standing behind him? Well, it's because in this movement, his impure thoughts are now being blamed on the sisters because they dressed wrong or this. And he's not, all of his indecent thoughts and behaviors are justified because the women or the world have put it out there to corrupt him. And how can he be responsible for his own thoughts and his actions?
Oh, bullshit.
Right, so that's why a lot of people have found this to be extremely problematic. We'll just give that piece of it today, that this is a lesser known cult it's just absolute chaos, and it's all about subservience of women, which we think we see quite often in a lot of cults. And they have a leader who is found to have a ton of wives and child brides and all this good stuff. So we could definitely deep dive that into the future. But I mean, if we really start to walk down this path, there's so much with the trial of the doctor and with the Duger's trial problems and then the leader's problems. But it all comes, their beliefs all come from this one proverb. We could get into that sometime too, but it's just, there's so much here and it's so problematic. And like, we have two feminist women sitting here, and I think you guys are definitely in support of feminism as well. You don't think your wife is subservient to you by any means.
No, God, no.
So, I mean,
whoa.
He's lucky he's allowed to come over.
I'm the boss.
He was like, I'm going to make stew yesterday. And then she's like, you're doing it wrong. He's like, okay, you do it. And then it turned into she's making this stew now. So supportive.
hey, I think we could just
I
go
tried
down a
making
rabbit hole.
stew.
You did good, sweetie. You did great.
Hit him on the head.
Go
Hit him on the
play.
head.
Go play with the panda.
Go play,
while-
with your friends.
Go play with your friends.
Go outside. Come back when it's dark.
I feel like today's episode is mostly trailers to bigger stories
They definitely can be.
for
Well,
the most
mine-
part.
Right. Mine actually does not follow the same kind of sex slave, women are subservient bullshit. My cult is the movement for the restoration of the 10 Commandments of God.
Church.
Yeah. Catholic. Now, this actually happens in Uganda. And there's kind of part of what we're going to see here is that's problematic is because Uganda, especially back in the 80s, is really kind of early 90s. Not a lot of information simply because of how isolated this area is. And, it's just not a lot of readily accessible information, media. And it's all kind of really overwhelming what happens next. So there's a couple of scenarios as to how this came about. So one scenario was starting from the 1960, a gentleman by the name of Paulo
Kashaku.
started having visions of his deceased daughter, Evangelista. And she would tell him that he would be visited by apparitions from heaven. Now, this kind of should sound a little bit familiar, especially with the Catholic Church and scenario, because a lot of children have claimed to have seen the Virgin Mary in certain areas. The Song of Bernadette is a movie based on this. But either way, the point is that he would later claim that even Jesus came to visit him, the Virgin Mary, Saint Joseph, and that there were always like messages about how, this, that, and the other, and some of it would be prophesized. And he was being told to basically create like create believers and create this movement. Well, Paulo's children also claim to see divine entities. And one of his daughters, Credonia Merwind, again, I can't even speak English sometimes when it comes to people's names. She propelled a lot of the ideas of let's make this happen. We're going to form this group. The Virgin Mary's coming to me a lot too. And I mean, she was a store proprietor. She was a brewer of banana beer, which I didn't really know.
Did you say banana beer?
Yeah,
That sounds amazing.
No, it was a thing. I don't like banana daiquiris, so that doesn't even appeal to me.
I love banana everything.
Get that? You see what she just did there? Appeal there?
Did you do that on purpose? That was great. That was very punny of you.
No. Anyways, so in 1984, she's like, the Virgin Mary came to me. I got to knock this out. I got to start this movement. And the other scenario is that this whole thing got started with kids at the recess claiming that they started having visions of the Virgin Mary at this particular school. And again, this sounds very familiar, especially with the 3 children in the movie The Song of Bernadette, where they see the Holy Mary. I mean, that becomes a huge, massive thing. I think it happens in Portugal. anyways, but this is in Uganda in the 1980s. So they're not sure. So, and again, if it's his grandkids at school saying, I see the Virgin Mary at recess time, obviously that kind of ties together.
Well, it's funny, though, because, I mean, given this is in the 1980s, but don't we know that children are
Susceptible.
suggestible, so that if I tell them that there's a man that comes down their chimney, they're going to believe me.
Correct. The whole world. I mean, the majority of the world does, yes. So Credonia is like, I got to get this started. And in June of 1989, she meets he's kind of comes off like the principal or a supervisor who actually founds a Catholic school, and he's the supervisor of other schools in the region, and his name is Joseph Kiberter.
You always choose these names.
Just
I know.
pick one
Joseph.
one way of saying it and run with that
Stick
one.
with it, yes. And so Credonia and Joseph are like, oh my God, you see the Virgin Mary? I see the Virgin Mary. We've got to do something about this. So they decide to create this movement. And in their prophecy and in their creating of this cult, they tell everybody that the apocalypse is coming. The end of the world is going to happen on December 31st, 1999. And shit's going to go bad on January 1st, 2000. And the fact that the whole world was worried that the technological turnover was going to cause some massive glitches just basically feeds into their plan. So what they do is they tell everybody, you will only survive if you live and breathe the 10 Commandments. This is it. These are your 10 rules. Okay? But according to Mel Brooks, there was actually 3 tablets, but Moses dropped one of them. Point is that the rich people who joined this cult, gave them their money. They absorbed other people's properties. They took everything they could from the people, because, I mean, you don't need all these things when you go to heaven. It doesn't work that way. It's just your soul, and you got to have a good soul. You know what I mean? And so on top of the 10 Commandments, the members were actually restricted from speaking to each other, and they ended up basically making them sign language each other. Sex was forbidden. Soap was forbidden. They had to work in fields and grow their own food. So it's kind of like a commune. And they had to, hustle. On Mondays and Fridays, they were only allowed one meal. Soap was considered a sinful indulgence and hence forbidden. So you got a lot of stinky ass people running around.
That's why I don't use it.
Stink.
We know. Their holy text was called A Timely Message from Heaven, The End of the Present Time. And believe it or not, by 1997, 3 years before the Armageddon, they had expanded to 5,000 members. Now, January's coming, 2000. January 2000 is coming. It's December 31st, and they're just, I've done everything I'm supposed to do. And guess what happens?
The sun rises
Nothing.
again.
Fucking nothing.
Nothing. I was going to say, they did this for 15 years, garnered
Correct.
support and loyalty for
Correct.
15 years.
They
That's a
even
lot.
managed to build schools and churches. Okay, so there's an old church where they were worshiping and a brand new church that they were worshiping. Now, I actually remember where I was on December 31st, 1999. I was with you, and we, believe it or not, instead of panicking, we had this very nice dinner and we all played games. I even have a picture of us in your grandmother's kitchen. That's how I was partying in 1999.
What were we playing?
Board games.
What were we playing?
Probably Chutes and Ladders.
Nothing
You were
too
5.
complicated for you.
So that's-
You were
that is-
5, sir.
That is not the way to go. Should have been
I wasn't
playing
even 5
Clue.
yet.
4.
I
Yeah.
was 4. How dare you?
right?
I was there, bro. I know how old I was.
So that's what we were doing for the end of the world. We were playing board games. But in Uganda, it doesn't happen. And this, of course, pisses off the members. In fact, the people who were like, you lied to us, they start obviously losing some members. But some of them, especially the ones who gave them money, gave up their worldly goods, were like, I want a motherfucking refund. So,
Yeah, give me
No
my
can
stuff
do,
back.
buckaroo.
Correct.
Sorry.
so Joseph and Credonia come up with a plan. And they're saying, okay. Actually, believe it or not, March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, is actually the real date of the end of the world.
Which is a really common theme as you start to look at cults, particularly doomsday cults or cults that are waiting for the end of the world. The date comes and passes, and they're like, whoops, we must have gotten it wrong. And then they just keep,
Miscalculation.
and they just keep pushing it back and pushing it back. And everyone's just like, okay, well, we'll just stick it in for a couple more months. Like, no, dude, they were wrong the first time. How much more do you need?
Right. The Aztec calendar was wrong, bitch.
Right, must have been their fault.
Was wrong, Bob.
They weren't Christians.
So, and they actually move everybody to an area called the Kunaga.
Yep.
Kunagu. They
Nailed it.
moved to the area called the Kunagu.
Kunaku. I don't think that's it.
It's probably not it. It's somewhere in Uganda.
Sorry,
I can say
Uganda.
Uganda. And they're like, we need to get together. And so they actually have some of their members go and reach out to the ones that dropped out and say, hey, we're having this party because it's happening on March 17th. Shit's going down. We need to bring you guys, kind of like bring the lambs back to the shepherd kind of scenario. And in addition to that, to prepare for this, the 17th, they go and they buy a shit ton of Coca-Cola,
Oh.
and they slaughter all the cattle.
Oh.
And I mean, even their nuns are like running around and trying to bring in former members. They basically sell off their products that they had made, and they settle all the debts in the community. And they're still kind of, sounds like they're kind of still kind of recruiting and stuff. But they do something that raises an eyebrow. Father Dominic Kakarububu, again,
Also nailed it.
Caribou.
who was an excommunicated Roman Catholic priest, but now group leader, probably youth leader. He goes to the store owned by a gentleman by the name of John Masuk, and he buys 13 gallons of sulfuric acid from him.
For science.
Correct. And he's like, oh, no,
It's a religious cult.
I need to replenish power batteries at the seminary for this sulfuric acid. And John's like, okay.
Cool. No doubt.
So they pull everybody in on the night of March 15th, and everyone's just having like a barbecue.
Oh, do
Beef
they
and
drink
Coke.
the punch?
And they,
You're too excited about the Kool-Aid.
That's the best part about these cults is Kool-Aid.
There's a Kool-Aid.
There's a Kool-Aid?
no, they got Coke this time, guys.
Oh, it's Coca-Cola.
That's way better.
And they're
That's
having
terrible.
this barbecue party scenario. It's the end of the world as we know it scenario in their new church. On the next night, the 16th, they spend the night praying because here it's coming. We've had our feast. Now it's time to pray. The next morning at 10 a.m.-ish, they leave the new church and they go back to the old church. And witnesses will say all the walls and stuff was all boarded up, and they don't even know if it was like boarded up on the inside or the outside. But what happens next is they basically believe at about 10:30 there's this massive explosion that the nearby villagers hear, and this fire just basically takes the building immediately, and everybody who's inside is now dead. So they think a bomb potentially went off, triggering a fire within the church. Now, of course, law enforcement and everybody gets involved, and they find 338 bodies inside the burnt building. And when they do some autopsies, they quickly learn that most of the people actually died from poisoning as well. Any guesses?
Kool-Aid.
Probably the coke and the sulfuric acid, if I had to guess. Now, 4 days after the fire, because they're like, you know, there's something else not right here. Things aren't adding up. We're still kind of missing some people. They find 6 bodies at the bottom of the latrine behind the church, basically covered with concrete. And they realize that all 6 were like fucking beaten, brutally slaughtered, half dressed, and basically tossed like they didn't matter in some sort of fucking hole. So they're just discarded. But I said concrete, so that should tell you this probably happened days before.
Yeah, beforehand.
Now, they continue to find other mass graves, and on March 24th, they find an additional 153 bodies in graves in Rutoma, which is 30 miles south of Kunagunagu. And then on top of that, they find 2 more mass graves on March 26th at Father Dominic's house. Okay? And they exhumed 74 bodies in the mass grave in his yard. And they find an additional 28 bodies underneath the concrete floor of his home. So, again, some of this went down before March 17th. And if I had to guess, these people who are under the concrete are the people who they probably owed a shit ton of money back to.
That's what I was thinking. Here, come over. I'll pay you back.
Correct.
I promised you death.
And between all of this, all these mass graves and the burning of the houses and the burning of the church, they basically massacred about 780 people. I think it's like 788.
It's a lot.
Yeah. Now, the curious thing is, any guesses who they don't find in these mass graves or these burnt body scenario?
Father Dom.
I was gonna say the leader people.
Cordonia and Joseph. Matter of fact, a witness actually tells the police that he saw them leaving the festivities with suitcases in hand and wondered why the leaders would be leaving the party before it ends, like the celebration, before the 17th shows up. You know, the end of the world. So, and the problem with this is that this is so unheard of in this region, and it is not something that's common, and law enforcement was just basically overwhelmed with how horrific and how much this was. I mean, it's a lot. It's unreal. Even in my mind, you know, that would be overwhelming here in the United States. Even though, you know, unfortunately, due to mass killings, we do have, to some degree, a lot of different agencies and resources that would investigate this. So that's it. That is the story, for the most part, of the movement for the restoration of the 10 Commandments.
I can't even name all 10.
I could probably get there eventually, but on my Catholic school days.
Yes.
Love thy neighbor still. I don't know.
Yes.
Yes. Don't
Thou
commit
shalt
murder.
not-
Yeah.
right.
Thou shalt not kill.
Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife.
That's fucked up. This is very, I feel like
Lord,
it's very
name and
specific. He's probably looking at somebody in the crowd. He's like, don't kill nobody.
He's like, you, Bob, you're a shithead. Don't do any of the things Bob does.
Leave Joseph's wife alone.
Oh, Lord. That's a lot. That was a mass casualty situation, which is kind of crazy for some of these doomsday cults. They don't get very many. Like, that's a lot of people.
Well, and then it's kind of funny because when you hear the word cult, you think satanic, demon worship, pentagram, but in reality, a lot of them are.
What's a pentagram butt?
Huh?
What's a pentagram butt?
A lot of them are
I
like
will show
religious
you.
based.
Well, you know,
Please
religion.
do that in private.
An ass worth worshipping.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to see the polar bear's ass in this room.
Oh, God.
You speak for
I-
the whole
I-
group?
However,
Furthermore,
yeah, instead of I'm gonna refrain from using but. However, a lot of these cults actually turned out religious, Christian, and a lot of them are just not even a certain religion. It's just a person trying to act as something more.
Like a deity.
A deity.
Charge.
Yeah, to be worshipped, to be obeyed.
And it's funny how it's usually men.
Yes.
You said something about women starting all this.
Right, I said usually.
Whoa.
Whoa.
I
you
think
don't know
there
what
was 2
usually
women
is?
we've said today that were part of their cults.
It
Sure.
would be interesting to do a
Hey,
woman cult leader.
Mine
one.
wasn't his
Do you
fault,
think a
okay?
woman's getting a blowjob out of this?
Yeah, they get roadhead, bro. How dare you? It's a law of the road, bro.
All I'm saying is
What is it? Ass, grass, or
Ass, grass, cash.
gas,
And if she
grass, or ass. The 3 G's.
you just know? You just
ass. What did I say?
Gas, grass, or ass.
yes.
You said cash.
It's cash. Now it is.
Okay.
You want cash?
No, gas.
You use the cash to buy gas.
I feel like
And
you're gonna
Jim-
give me $20 and it's gonna give me like 2 gallons.
Motherfucker, I'm broke.
Either way, I don't think in my story, Keith. It's not Keith Raniere's fault. I think it was Nancy Salzman
Right.
pushing him. Okay, it wasn't his fault. I think she was instigating him. She dressed like that and started a cult.
Do you also have a appointment with the Quiverful movement today for your orientation?
As a matter of fact.
Yeah, I don't know.
I am an arrow.
All right. Panda, what you got?
Drugs. So my cult is not as big as yours. In fact, that's what's kind of ironic is that you have like the biggest one, and then I go to one of the smallest ones.
To be fair, the assignment was lesser cults, and we didn't realize how big these cults were
Yeah, so
Yeah.
they're
until
they,
after.
well, that's the
we-
thing is like they're well, they people know it, but they don't know it. Does that make sense? Like everyone knows the Marilyn Manson, Charles Manson, and stuff like that. But like, you know, you guys just did 3, and I'm like, that sounds way worse. I mean, I'm not to say Charles Manson's cult wasn't bad in the first place, but
Well, they slaughtered a pregnant lady.
yeah,
Well, but I think it's notoriety. So at the
Mhm.
time,
Right, I
him
think that's exactly
killing
why
those
they
guys-
chose her.
Right. Well,
Sharon Tate.
he actually thought he was going to her house. Not that we should go down this path, but to kill a producer that had slighted him. So Sharon Tate just happened to be there. He didn't realize she was renting that house, I believe. He did mean to kill the LeBlancas. But regardless, that was very notoriety. Like, there was a lot of notoriety that came with that because they were famous people. Whereas, like, the Quiverful movement, they've slid under the radar for a while. And NXIVM slid under the radar for a long time, too, until people started, you know, it's not that these guys aren't as big. I think we're just starting to find out about them.
Right.
And the Nexium ones.
and they just resolved that one.
There was
It just
rumors.
happened.
There was a lot of rumors, but nobody was willing to do anything about it until there was something concrete. And it wasn't until these ladies started coming forward and throwing it out there like this has actually happened, blah, blah, blah. And that's when it started to get investigated.
Got him. So mine takes place in the 70s from a man named Rosh. I can't see. I get these fucking names, bro.
Are you guys
I
related?
I mean, it must be because I've been practicing how to say this fucking name until it got to me. I was sitting there going, it's
He got
Rosh Thero.
You have to practice with your mouth. You can't just practice with
I
your
know.
brain.
Well, it's like, what would you say just name over and over again until it gets to me?
Look in
Rosh
the mirror.
Thero.
Yeah.
Rosh Thero. Rosh Thero.
Just put him on mute.
Yeah, just let him talk to himself in the corner.
You'll hear it
Yeah.
in my mic in the background.
Super creepy.
Are they chanting?
I've started my cult over here. Hold on.
Well, according to the polar bear, we're already in one.
I'm sorry I disobeyed. I'm sorry I spoke out of turn.
Well, as long as she doesn't punish
No
you
orange
like,
sash for you, foo.
as long as she doesn't punish you like Mr. Rush here, you'll be
Oh,
all right.
God.
Yeah. So this wasn't even my choice at first, but then I was kind of scrambling for an idea who to choose. And then he's like, oh, hey, you should do this one. Here's a YouTube video. I'm going to do somebody else. I was like, why? He's like, I couldn't even finish the YouTube video. So, yeah.
That's the cult I brought up earlier. I read about it. I was like, oh, this is really good. And then I got to some parts, and I was like, I'd rather not say this.
Oh, so he's like,
I
the
know
guy
a
with
You
guy.
no-
passed it off.
the guy with no morals looks like dog shit. He could do it.
Yeah, I know a guy.
This
I
is
know,
too
okay.
deep. This is too deep.
Anyway, Ross Theroux, he was born in 1947. He's from Canada. Born in Canada. This is all Canadians, and so Canadians aren't so pure and innocent as you might think.
I could have told you that.
Yeah, either way. So in 1977, he founds this cult. He was a part of he was part of Catholicism,
Catholicism.
and he was kind of heavily involved, quote unquote, and then he ended up going to the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And that's where they promote self-cleansing, no tobacco, no drinking, no purity of yourself. So in 1977, he forms the cult by enlisting these young adults. I mean, they're all adults by this point. So he says, "Hey, Doomsday is coming. Let's all hang out together in the woods." So at first he keeps the idea of self-cleansing and self-reliancy, and they go off to live together, and they just rely on each other, and they make money by selling baked goods. So and that's how it starts. It's mostly women.
Like just normal baked goods, or is there pot in them? Because it is the 70s.
It is the 70s, so they could have laced that shit with whatever, man.
Yeah.
They're
So it's
they're
basically
to
like
make
a
money.
commune.
Yeah, so it's just its own little community that he wants to be in charge, and he wants to preach the word. But he soon falls, into his own contradiction by becoming a heavy drinker, and just starts going fucking senile on these people. So as soon as they join the cult or the group that they become, they start building their community, and he's watching them all build their houses and stuff, and he notices and kind of thinks to himself, they're kind of like ants. Why don't we call ourselves the Anthill Kids?
Okay.
Yeah, fucking, he's a weirdo.
Mm-hmm.
So he has them build this little community. And he calls them the Anthill Kids, and right off the bat, they cut off all communication to like their family and everyone else out there. They are not allowed to speak to anybody outside of their community. Like if they go do the baked good sales or whatever,
How are you
That's
supposed to communicate with those people?
he's there. He's the guy.
Okay.
But then he starts pushing his power a little more in terms of, well, now you guys can't have sex with each other without my permission. You guys can't talk unless I'm around. You guys can't marry each other, so you can only marry me. So he ends up marrying like 8 of the, I think he only has like 12 followers, but he marries like 8 or 9 women, and he bears children with all of them. By the end result, he ends up having 26 kids. So another arrow quiver for his own. So yeah, so he's he started, but he still preaches the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Stay healthy, this and that. But they can't contact their family, and he just keeps going. But then he starts punishing them. He starts getting kind of paranoid. So if he thinks they're about to leave the cult or believes they're trying to turn on him, he will follow them and stalk them, and then he'll remind them that God is telling him.
Oh, so now he's a prophet too.
Well, he's been a prophet because God told him about the apocalypse that's going to happen
Okay.
in February of, I think, 79, I think it says.
They're all prophets. I mean, let's be serious here. They all have some divine messaging.
Right.
So, yeah, and so he starts following these people, and he just starts punishing them in terms of, and to prove their loyalty, to cut off their own toes, makes them break their own feet or their legs. I mean, it's not like a huge community of people, and like, but then he would also he would randomly some nights just defecate on them
What?
As punishment.
as punishment.
And you said this branches off of Catholicism. That was its root.
That was his roots,
Okay.
and he never finished high school. He didn't do anything, but he had a charismatic charm about him, I guess.
Well, they all
Jesus
do.
Yeah, they
Christ.
all do. I don't
They're
know how.
all messiahs and they're all charismatic. But
Right.
I ask about the Catholicism thing because the really hardcore Catholics and monks and stuff do that.
Self-whipping.
That torture thing. It's part of their penance.
I don't know why. God gave you senses for a fucking reason.
Well, so it sounds like he just manipulated that.
Well, he
into
manipulated
their
them,
own
and then he
version
got
of-
them cut them off, and then he just starts torturing these people. He would hang them from the ceilings.
Oh my God.
He would pluck every hair off their body one by one.
But this
He was-
isn't really surprising either, though, because he said they're like ants. So as soon as he did that, he
Yeah,
dehumanized them.
Exactly what he did.
He's like just doing the equivalent of getting the magnifying glass and burning these little ants.
Right.
Right. So
As they go about their work, good ethic.
right. Well, it just gets he just punishes these people. He makes them sit on a hot stove. He makes them act in duels and shoot each other.
Gosh.
He makes them eat dead mice in the feces to them of the mice itself. I thought this was fake. Yeah, I thought these articles were bullshit, but they're all the same. The YouTubes, there's podcasts about it. Surprised we made it this far without talking about this guy.
Yeah, he was just trying to push the limits and see how much he could get them to do. It's kind of intense.
And
Fucking sick.
Mm-hmm.
to bring something up is all the mutilation that he does to them. He doesn't let them go to the doctor.
Right.
He's the doctor.
So that's what comes later. So, he continues his fucking endurance of sexual torture or whatever else he does because they start having kids because he's doing whatever with his multiple wives. But sometimes he would just abuse the kids sexually, and even to the point where he would pin the child to a tree or some sort of post, and the other children he would have them throw rocks at the child.
Oh, so like
gosh.
stone them.
Yeah,
What a fucker.
yeah, it's fucking terrible.
So
He's not done.
That's not all.
Not done.
Well, there was one where they made a child stay outside during a blizzard because it's Canada, and it died.
oh.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know how they fathomed that this guy was the guy, but they let them raise children here. Do what they make him. I don't get it. I just don't get it because then he starts believing himself that he's more holy. And he's like you said, he keeps pushing them boundaries. So he becomes their local doctor because they couldn't see a doctor because they couldn't communicate with the outside world.
Right.
So before that, the 79 February month hits where he claims this whole time the apocalypse is going to happen. And, well, sure as shit, nothing happens. And then he claims that, when God sent me that message, he was in a different time zone.
Oh my God.
So he's like, our worlds are parallel. We're like the verbatim words. So, like, our timelines are not exact, but it is still coming. But he never specifies when the world's coming after that.
Of course.
So he just plays it off that. Oh yeah, it's still coming. It's just it's a little late because I got the
Little
message.
delayed.
Yeah,
a little
delayed.
delayed.
But so he starts becoming doctor to most of these people and performing surgeries on these people. But now this man's
No.
never graduated high school.
Fucking
He's never been
no.
to college. This guy's a fucking idiot. But he starts practicing, surgery. He just starts cutting them up, doing whatever. But he starts practicing circumcisions.
Circumcisions. People let the guy near their
The adult men as well, and the children that were there.
well, children is one thing, but adult men let him put a knife to their Johnsons. No.
Yes.
No.
They must have been bored as hell in Canada. That's all I'm saying.
I say there's a reason that you have to
It's the 70s.
deprogram people because they're in so deep. Like you can't reason with them.
Okay, so,
So yeah, in '89, this is where
89.
in '89. So it's at least been
20
Tw-
I was
years.
gonna say 19 years. Yeah.
no.
It's been a couple of decades.
Why?
Because you said it was 1970s.
70s.
Right. So 19. 77.
Oh.
77 was when the cult started.
Okay,
Okay, so
12
12
years.
12 years. Yeah, I was like a couple of decades. I'm like, maybe my math's wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's like 12
But
years.
still, it's almost the 1990s for Christ's sake.
Right.
Say,
Okay.
in fairness, you sent us down the wrong path to begin with.
All I said was 1977. The cult started.
Okay, go ahead.
Either way, so in '89, this is where the
Sorry.
Try that again.
I don't even know what I said.
In
Either way, in
1899.
79.
Either way, in 1989, and it's been at least 10 plus years of this cult of going through. He started doing his more surgeries and circumcisions of whatever he wanted to do. A woman by Solange Boillard. Now this is not me. This is what he did. Okay, so For the next couple of seconds, maybe you want to skip past the part because it gets really fucking weird.
What, you have trigger warnings
I mean,
for everything?
it's just not graphically something that should have been said. But this is literally the highlight of why this fucking guy was fucking no. I mean, everything past everything else. You know, we can go detail if we do this again later about everything else he did. But this is like the pinnacle point of why.
Okay.
Why? So Solange Boyd complained of an upset stomach. So Rosh decides to perform a surgery on her without anesthesia. He laid her naked on a table, and then he punched her in the stomach and forced a plastic tube into her rectum to perform an enema with molasses and olive oil. He cut open her abdomen with a knife and ripped a part of her intestines with his bare hands, and Rosh made another member, Gabrielle Lavalle, stitch her up using a needle and thread and had her shove a tube down Solange's throat and blow through it to create an airflow. So, just to recap, he cuts her open, does an enema, goes into her stomach and pulls a part of her intestines with his bare hands and has another member stitch her up. And she doesn't know, she's not medical, she's just a fucking follower. And stitch her up and shove this tube down her throat to help create an airway and breathe into it. So, due to the surgery, the victim died the next day.
That's not a surgery. That's a mutilation.
No, I was gonna say
Oh,
it was
no.
sodomy.
So just hang out. Once I get through this, then you can do whatever. So, claiming to have the power of resurrection to bring faith back to the group, Roach bored a hole into Solange's skull with a drill, and had all other male members, himself included, ejaculate into the cavity. The cavity, yeah. When she did not return to life, her corpse was buried a short distance from the Ant Hills commute.
Yeah, because sperm's gonna bring you back to life.
Jesus fucking Christ. That was disgusting.
So
People do it
It's
their own way.
unfathomable.
Yeah. Yeah.
this man is unhinged. Like there's no reasonable thought there.
Right. The guy's a fucking tool. The guy's a fucking idiot. And yet these people,
Is he
they're
in
bigger.
jail now?
So, okay, we're going.
We're getting there.
So, Gabrielle, the one who stitched up the woman and had to shove the tube down the woman's throat, she was also, suffering horribly. She suffered welding tortures, burns to her genitals. A hypodermic needle was broken off in her spine.
Oh my
And
God.
8 teeth had been forcibly removed out of her mouth.
Oh.
And so she had tried to escape before, or she kind of had thought, okay, I'm done with this. But she was so self-reliant on this community, she couldn't leave at first. And he would torture her even more. Where Roach had cut off parts of her breast and smashed her in the head with the blunt end of an axe. Oh, it doesn't stop. Sorry, that's the first time she tried to escape. So I mean, like I said, there's more details to this. So I mean, if we did another one, I could tell more details about how she tried to escape and this and that. But this is just the basic of what the pinnacle.
The skim.
This is how the extent of how they become revealed of who they are, because Gabrielle is the one that ends up getting away, but
and so the first time did they catch her when
she tried to escape, and then he just punished the shit out of her. He even cut off one of her fingers with wire cutters, pinned her hand to a wooden table with a hunting knife before cutting her arm off with a chainsaw.
Oh my
gosh.
God.
How did she live?
Jesus Christ. Okay,
She's
so
a
she
doctor.
escapes.
So in that same year, 1989, she was able to escape and contact the authorities. Roach was arrested and charged with assault with amputation on Gabrielle's arm, and they were able to come see the community and be like, "What the fuck is going on here?" And they put an end to it. So Roach gets sentenced to 12 years for his ongoing abuse with assault with Gabrielle.
Is that it, just?
No.
12?
I'm going.
Okay.
You thought you were to say something, so.
No, I'm
It was
patiently
I
waiting.
told you, it's not me. I'm not. I'm
Don't get mad
just
at
the
me.
guy, man. When he did was arrested, though, the majority of the followers did leave him. And because once his direct physical contact was gone, everyone just kind of scattered. But while he was still in prison, he still fathered 4 more children through conjugal visits.
Jesus Christ.
And, so people still there were still followers that still followed him even while in jail.
Prison groupies.
So, but because of Gabrielle, the investigators were able to discover more of the torture and abuse at the commune and the murder of the
Solange.
yeah. So, but he did plead guilty, and then he got imprisonment for life with no chance of parole. In 2002, he tried to apply for parole, but was denied. In 2009, he tried to sell some of his artwork on a murder-themed auction website in a place where true crime enthusiasts can buy letters by like cult leaders, other.
That's so beyond vulgar.
His artwork was blocked from leaving the prison, though, because he'd be profiting off his own crimes.
Correct.
But in February 26, 2011, Roche's cellmate called a prison guard over to his cell, handed the guard a weapon that was covered in blood, and said, "That piece of shit is down on the range. Here's a knife. I sliced him up." And then,
Justice.
in its own way, yeah.
No, that's fucking justice.
Those are the ones that you're not so sad about. Like, murder is never okay, but if you're going to murder anybody, I guess let it be this guy.
No, that's not murder. That's justice.
So there's more details I can give about
Yeah.
what happened down there and how they function and what they did more. But like I said, this was just a very basic thing. And then, the highlight of the most important thing that
Oh my
happened there that
God.
fucking drove Gabrielle to the edge.
Is she still alive? Do we know?
I believe so, yes. I think she wrote a book.
He probably couldn't deny any of his crimes because you show up and there is, like, if this woman doesn't have an arm, can you imagine how many other people were missing body parts?
yeah.
Like, it probably
Yeah,
looked
when
like
they
a
went-
battlefield.
When they went to see the community and went to fucking
Right,
Right, when you're selling fucking bread, I'd be like, you guys don't look so good.
Right. Like, what
Over
the hell?
the 12 years, you've lost an arm, you've lost something. What the fuck is going on here?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there was any way he could deny it.
Okay, well, so these are the skinny, just the
Shallow
sliver.
dives.
Well, mine was complete, but the sliver, fucking cults. People, please, for the love of, I don't know what you want to believe in.
Can't say
anymore.
God after all these awful
Correct.
cults you just brought up.
For the love of self-love, don't drink the fucking Kool-Aid. Okay, on to business. We have a Facebook page.
Facebook.
Facebook.
Yeah.
If you're curious and interested, please check it out. Send us requests. But if you have a topic you'd like us to someday cover or a cult, because we're actually going to do a survey on this, because this was a topic that we were all kind of absolutely blown away by. Send us a suggestion at Panda's favorite email at wherethedarkcornersare@gmail.com. Final thoughts, Samantha.
I wonder what the other 5 commandments were.
Right?
Because if there's, logically, right, if there's 2 tablets and they each have 5, then the other one had to have 5 too. And what do you think that was?
I think there's one that was don't cover thy neighbor's ass.
I'm going with, like, don't steal someone's cow.
Correct. I think that's exactly what that really means. Panda, a polar bear?
I don't know. Use your own brain. Judge every situation. I mean, just because it feels like the tunnel's closing in on you doesn't mean that's true. There's always other options rather than going through with the, I don't know, cult activities, I guess. I mean, if you find yourself in a situation where you feel it's like everything's crushing down on you, there's places that can help. Not Nexius, but maybe other places.
Anna?
Nexium.
Okay, no final thoughts.
I'm a cult to fucking sports. So.
Well, if we do
Sports,
this,
movies, anything else, entertainment is all a cult. We have our own deities that we watch and love and experience by cheering
Worship,
for them,
yeah.
worship.
All right. So until next time, please remember, only the few can find the beauty in the darkness, which is where we hope to meet you, where the dark corners are. Road trip with the panda.
Woo!
That's
Almost
not
had
it.
Almost first try.
I feel like she's doing bloopers on purpose.
nailed
now.
it. Part 2.
I can hear it.
Oh, you
Bloop,
can?
Bloop, 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 bloop.
Oh, like I couldn't hear it at all. Could you
I
hear me
couldn't hear it.
typing?
No.
Sorry.
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 He's just the guy who's talking.
Why? Just unmute them. It's over. Diabetes operators. Either way,